All right, and welcome to this special episode of Real Estate Fight Club. This is a series called What Would You Do, where we talk about the code of ethics, professional standards, and violations. Here with me today is Rachel Rreal from Rachel Rreal Real Estate in Chicago. Hey, Rachel.
Good morning, Jen. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
I'm excited about this topic today. It's like real juicy.
It's kind of juicy, right? And when we started talking about this, when I thought this doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's like it kind of catches you off guard. So you're like, well,
Right.
what do I even do with this?
Right.
So-
Exactly.
So
All right, give it to
tell
us.
us. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about Article 1, which states essentially when representing a buyer, seller, landlord, tenant, or other client as an agent, realtors pledge themselves to protect and promote the interests of their client. The obligation to the client is not primary, but it does not relieve realtors of their obligation to treat all parties honestly. You also have to,
Notice it doesn't say fairly, it says honestly.
Right. Well, and it's funny because the word fair used to be in the Code of Ethics and it was taken out.
Good.
Because nothing is fair. I mean, when you think about it, life's not fair. This is not a participation trophy code of ethics.
Right.
It happens.
Exactly.
So, right. So we are also talking about cooperation and how cooperation is in the best interest of everyone, or that we're obligated to cooperate with each other as agents, unless it's not in the best interest of our client. So tell us a little bit. I mean, this came from something you sent me. So tell me a little bit about what you came across when you were looking for properties to show a buyer.
Well, I've seen this actually happen on the buyer and the seller side. So on the seller side, I've had clients be like, I don't want so-and-so to be able to show this property. Or that I don't want this buyer to be able to like buy the property or whatever, something like that.
Okay.
And then on the buyer side, I've seen in the comments where it says like, nobody from this agency is allowed to show it, or like even where inspectors aren't allowed to go in, certain inspectors.
Right. Okay. Now, when you come across it from the seller side, if you're having this conversation with a seller, when the seller says, hey, I don't want, ABC brokerage or XYZ person to come in and show my property, what kind of conversation do you have with the client at that point, with the seller?
I mean, obviously I want to know the goss.
Right. Like, what's up?
Like,
what's
why?
Right. Why not?
I mean, I think like, if they don't want it, they don't want it. That's fine. I mean, and I'm like, well, what if they're the highest offer? And they're like, I don't give a shit. I'm like, I mean, okay.
Right.
What are you gonna do
now?
If
they were to come to you and say, I don't want this person looking at my house because they are a member of a protected class, for instance.
Oh, right. Well, that's a different conversation. Like, that's not legal.
A whole different conversation. Right.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, if that's not in the case, like if that's not the reason, it's usually what it's been. And this has actually happened now that I'm thinking about it, it's happened a couple times. It's like an ex-spouse, or it's like an ex-spouse's family member, or like an agent that they had a really bad experience with on a different house or something like that.
Right. So it's a pretty specific scenario where the client's directing you.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a specific person. It's not like, I don't want anybody
from this whole brokerage to not show my house.
Right. But I've seen that in the comments.
Right. Now, what are your thoughts on that?
So the question is, okay, so I don't want anybody from, whatever ABC brokerage to show the property. Right. My first question is, or the question was, is this legal? Like, yes, I think it's legal. Is it a violation of the code of ethics? I don't think it is. I don't think it's a violation of the code of ethics. I think that it's misguided.
Right. Especially if you're talking about, like, to your point, the example of if it's an ex-spouse, somebody that maybe you have an order of protection against. It could be any kind of,
that's a specific person, though. That's not a whole brokerage. Like, I don't want.
Exactly.
And I think so we have to think about the, clear cooperation rules, which can you review that for the listeners?
So essentially clear cooperation means that if you put a property into the MLS, you are essentially putting it out there and making your offer of compensation to everyone. So that is the rule. So when you put a property into the MLS, you're agreeing to their rules that says you're going to cooperate with anyone else who's also a member of the MLS when it comes to selling the property.
But there have been a lot of brokerages, and there have been like the coming soons, right? Like the coming soons. And we did a video on
Oh,
this.
don't even get me started on this one. Don't even. Why'd you poke the bear?
So it's funny, but like,
fun,
is
right?
coming soon a violation of clear cooperation? And I would argue that also this whole, I don't know, we're having battles with the buyer agent compensation piece of it. It's all kind of linked for me. And I think that a lot of agencies, especially big brokerages that have a lot of market share, I think that it's in the brokerage's best interest to keep those properties in-house, because the chances, especially if you're a type of brokerage that does a lot of like dual agency, but is it that in the client's best interest? I would argue I doubt it.
It's not.
Yeah, but if I'm a big brokerage, I do a lot of dual agency, right? And in this market, maybe the argument is hey, you're going to get a lot of offers. We can get you what you want for the property without having a lot of exponentially more people traipsing through the house. Does that work for you? The seller might say, yeah, that's actually better.
They might.
So
right.
Then
exactly.
Is it better in a scenario?
Well, and you just never know what you're leaving out of the
that's the problem.
Option
that's the
out of the basket.
Right.
I mean, how do you know that? Yeah, you might get 5 offers if you expose it only to your own brokerage, but you could get 25 offers, one being cash for 10,000 over asking price if you expose it to the rest of the MLS.
Or so like depending on what their preferred price and terms would be, right?
Right, exactly.
But this was like our argument when we used to wholesale short sales. So back in the day when we wholesaled short sales, it was like, hey, look, we'll buy this property for this amount. Does that work for you? Yes. Okay. Well, the only way that I can buy it is if I can sell it for a certain amount. So I need a block of time that I can show it to prospective other investors to buy it so that I can buy it from you and sell it to them. And they would be like, okay. But then the banks were like, well, no, we don't want that to happen because you're leaving, because it was a short sale. So we were negotiating with the bank for our price, but we were reselling it for a spread, right?
Exactly.
And the bank was like, no, we want that spread. But the problem is that they didn't understand is the benefit to the seller is it's a block of time. They don't want people traipsing through their house. Maybe that's the benefit, because for them, they're shorting it anyway. It didn't matter.
Right. I guess at that point, were you putting those on the MLS then?
No.
You couldn't be putting right. So at that point, you kind of are an in-house private listing almost, where you're saying,
I wasn't a licensed agent either.
Right. And now they require wholesalers to be licensed agents.
I think I think like this is like kind of a bigger can of worms, because there have been times like if we've had a property that's occupied where we've wanted to put in very specific, like this property can be shown these days and times. And we've gotten pushback from the MLS, like you can't do that. It has to be open. Well, that's bullshit. If that's not in the best interest of the client and that's not what they want. But I can also see the MLS side
it's a slippery slope of that. That's where the problem is that you have, and I'm sure that I'm seeing it on my end also in my market, where a property goes up. And I mean, I have clients that receive MLS listings in real time. So it used to be that you could set them up and they'd receive them at certain times of the day.
Right.
Now you can set it up so it's a real time link.
Yeah, it's immediate.
So the second something I hit enter on my computer here to go live with a listing, my client over here is getting the email notification.
Right.
By the time they get that email notification and say, hey, I just got this from you, I want to see it, I'm pulling it up online only to find that 3 days of showings are completely blacked out.
Yeah.
Now, I mean,
or it's already pending.
Or but I mean, in all reality, how on earth in 3 minutes, 30 seconds, did 3 days worth of time get blocked out?
I don't know.
It's not. It's manipulation of the system. I'm certain that a lot of that's going on too. The MLS rule, generally the rule is, at least for ours, is if it's on the market and it's active, you must be willing to show it. Now, that means that if the seller wants to say, I can show it on Tuesday from 1 to 6, Thursday from 3 to 7, and Saturday from 9 to 12, then that's fine, because the seller has set those parameters.
But that could also be used as a marketing tool.
It can. You just can't put it up on the market and say active, and now all of a sudden I go to try and set up a showing, and everything is blacked out and you're not letting me in. And there's nothing in the MLS that states only Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning. In the absence of that, I should be able to get a showing request in there somewhere. not have a giant black screen in front of me where there's zero options.
Yeah. So I
So
guess
that's
we're
kind of
back
your
to the
MLS rule
question
when it comes
is,
to
do
that.
these limitations, well, specifically, do the limitations for other specific brokerages not able to show, is that against the code of ethics article?
So you got to look at it this way. So article says you protect and promote the best interest of your clients, and you're
Mhm.
also, you know, affirming that you're going to cooperate with other agents unless it's not in your client's best interest.
Right.
So your client has come to you and said, I don't want XYZ brokerage to be able to show my property at all. That in and of itself is not illegal.
Mhm.
And our job is to follow every lawful direction from our seller. So in
Right.
the absence of that being illegal, we have to follow that direction.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you, you better have that in writing, signed, dated, and sealed with a freaking, have it notarized, for crying out loud. Because if that comes back to bite you in the ass,
Yeah.
you might have a
We don't
problem.
really need it notarized, but it does need to be in
No,
writing from, it does need to be in writing from the seller.
from
And
the seller to the brokerage, to specifically state, I, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do not want any agents from XYZ brokerage to be permitted to show my property. And then as an agent, if I'm going to have a listing that has that information in it, I might even put that in the agent remarks or in the showing instructions, per
Mhm.
seller's written direction.
Right.
Agents from XYZ brokerage are unable to show the property.
Yeah. That's crazy though.
I
The
think when you're talking about a
ramifications of
seller,
that are,
I know that at that point too, I'd be looking at my seller going, okay, I understand if you have a specific agent, you might not want to have show
yes,
your property, but to alienate an entire brokerage
seems like,
seems counterproductive, because if you're asking me to get you the most money for your property by casting the widest net, and we all know that's the best way to do it,
right.
you're asking me to take it like cut like half the limb off the tree where all the
Right.
buyers are.
Exactly. Yeah, I know.
And
Well,
there are ways around that. I mean, now if somebody from XYZ brokerage has a buyer that wants to see the house, they can't see it. They're just going to do a referral and have somebody from
have
another
somebody else
brokerage come
show
in
it.
and show
Right.
it.
There's ways
So
around it.
there's
I
ways
know.
around it. It's just making it more cumbersome for the buyer, who you ultimately don't want to piss off. Why do you
Right.
want to piss off a buyer and start like that?
No, I agree. Well,
You
let's take
know,
a short break and have some final thoughts and strategies. So, I want to tell
sounds
you a
fabulous.
little bit about a couple of our partners. So, the first one is a new partner, Pipeline Pro Tools, and this is like a marketing engine where we have gotten a majority of our deals from. So it's really cool. They like, you don't have to cold call anymore because I know people hate cold calling.
Yeah, we
Wah,
do.
wah. But this is a
More for
really,
you, because I don't
yeah,
enjoy it.
I know I like it, but we're also using this. And this has actually been like our number one lead source for deals. So you would go to pipelineprotool.com/fight club. And all you have to do is like book a demo, and then they'll show you. And the demo is really good because anyway, they'll show you how we do it and they'll give you the playbook. So pipelineprotools.com/fight club. And then the other thing that we've been using for quite a while now is a virtual assistant to help us with all the crap that keeps us from generating leads and doing money generating activities. So we love, 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 Monica and I love our virtual assistant, and we use Cyberbacker. So you go to cyberbacker.com. When you input Fight Club, they will give you a special prize. All right, Rachel, what are some final thoughts you have about this topic? And do you think we're going to see more of this? And I guess it's not a violation of the code of ethics, technically.
Right. It would be a violation of the code of ethics if you didn't have it in writing from the seller.
Yes.
So if you
Right.
took it upon yourself to say, you know what, Jennifer, I don't like you. I don't want anybody from your brokerage coming to show my properties.
Yeah, that's
Say
BS.
say as an agent, I've
That's
had a
silly.
couple of crummy experiences with you and your
That would never
brokerage.
happen.
No, it would not, because we're awesome. But yeah, so I mean, you can't take it upon yourself as an agent to impart that on your seller's property
Right.
and your showing instructions.
Right.
So again, just make sure that you have that in writing, dated from your seller, very specifically. And like I said, I would probably note that in the showing remarks or the agent remarks, something that's private on the listing. Most of us
Right.
have a field for that,
Yeah.
where we can explain that a little bit further.
Right. Or make the call, but still.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Rachel, if people have a referral for you in Chicago or they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
The best way to reach me is by cell phone at 630-542-8688, or by email at rreal@dealwithreal.com.
Oh, yeah. All right. Thanks
Yeah.
for being on. See ya.
Thanks for having me. You bet.